Hello everyone, my name is Gene and this is the Astral Doorway channel. As a lot of you know, I made this video on the screen about the practice of sexual alchemy. If you've not seen it, I recommend to watch that first. The link is in the description. To understand transmutation of sexual energy for single people, watch this video. Both these videos are an hour long and I suspect that this one will be even longer. It's quite the challenge when teaching sexual alchemy to such a wide audience because, well, if we say all this to a spiritual master, we can say sex without orgasm between the loving matrimony of a couple is the ultimate form of spirituality. And the master will say, yes, understood, immediately. Obviously, because to an ascended being, a master, that is clear logic. He understands instantly in a profound way. And he will say, but do you really know what this practice really means in all levels of your being? And he'll say, I can see that you do not understand this, little dear adept of knowledge. And so here we are trying our best to understand what this practice really entails. It doesn't just take a split instant to understand, like for spiritual masters, we are adepts, and it takes years of meditation, study, discipline, perseverance in order to really understand and really begin to comprehend what the spiritual and psychological implications of White Tantra mean for us in direct experience. As a disclaimer, this video is for those who are serious about sexual alchemy and White Tantra. It is for those who really want to understand it and practice it. Whether you are a single looking for a partner, whether you are already in a relationship practicing it, it is not like New Age Tantra for pleasure or fun or just curiosity. This is serious. It requires a big commitment, and thus it is only for a high level of spirituality, for those people who are advancing or want to advance very rapidly. So from those two videos I showed you, this video is the next level, the next octave of reality in understanding this topic in a deeper way. I'll also be talking about things like the right ways to do pranayama for single people, creating the solar astral body and what that is, and also how the NoFap movement is ignorantly dangerous, and also what love is really about. And so we'll go into all of this here. Now, I'm overjoyed that so many of you in the comments really fell in love with this knowledge straight away on that first video of sexual alchemy. It's great. It's really great. It's beautiful, isn't it? But keep in mind, I only gave the very superficial layer of that practice. And in this video, we're going to go a lot deeper into the goal and the ultimate purpose of sexual alchemy. Because the purpose of sexual alchemy is not just for the sake of alchemy itself. Alchemy is to create gold, the gold of the spirit. So sex is not the purpose in itself. That is not the goal. To have sex itself as our main goal or motivation in life is already what the whole world is lost in, right? It's one way we can already define lust, to just live for lust, right? We are going to work with lust through this practice. We're not living for lust. We're not doing that here in this White Tantric practice. And not just lust as desire for physical sex, but lust as in desire for anything material, whether it's a physical body, money, fame, worldly attainments, social status, food, having a nice car, career, family, children. I'm not saying that any of these things are bad in themselves, but people make these things as their primary goals and focus in life. In other words, they are psychologically and emotionally and sexually attached to the material, physical life, as we all are. People, possessions, beliefs, identifications, religion, science, bank statements. We are so obsessed with all of these worldly things. We even take all of it pridefully to the grave with us, giving our life for the sake of materialism. And even in our grave, the skeleton is holding on to these things very dearly, saying, my life is fulfilled, I got this nice house, I became a millionaire, I became known as a great doctor, scientist, engineer, YouTuber, I created a great business, I have 3 kids, etc. The truth is, divinity doesn't care. God doesn't care about our material, terrestrial nonsense. What is of the material is of the material. What is of the spirit is of the spirit. In the same way, sexual alchemy is not about material physical sex. The purpose behind it is found in the spiritual aspect of life, in the vertical dimension of either ascension or descension, of either working with raising the energies for awakening the consciousness through not reaching orgasm, or falling and becoming a slave to materialism and the material body, of either raising the Christic force of the spirit within us or falling to the anti-Christic force of materialism within us. Now, I know those are strong esoteric terms, but we're going to look into all of this more deeply here. And I hope you sense why this esoteric knowledge was kept secret for so long for the select few. Not because they were secretive for the sake of being secretive, but because people who had this knowledge could see that people could not accept these teachings, that the public weren't ready to give up on their dreams of life in order to really discover divinity within themselves. This knowledge has always been kept secret by underground groups, esoteric groups, Gnostics. And long ago, some of the more noble Gnostics were daring enough to even give these keys to humanity out of a deep love to save the suffering souls around them. But almost all of them were put to death. And I say this because after I made that first video on alchemy, I had a few Gnostic brothers message me saying, I can't believe you gave the great key to awaken consciousness to everyone so outright like that. Don't you understand that people need to be ready to hear it? And you know, they're not wrong. In one justified perspective, it is wrong to just tell people about this sacred knowledge in such a casual, blasé manner without first seeing if they're ready for it. This is why we have in esoteric traditions the ritual of initiation to see if that person is ready for this type of knowledge. Every great tradition, even today, even many Buddhist traditions, have this probationary path of what monks will go through, what initiates will go through, and the master, the teacher will watch them and wait for them and see if they're ready for this knowledge. But here we are, here I am, saying it publicly, as other people do, and science is also discovering it now. But we have to remember this. It's a good thing to keep in mind that it is like, this video is basically like casting pearls before swine, right? Because this information is so sacred. And that's what I really want you to understand here. Sexual alchemy is incredibly precious, sacred, and terribly divine. It is a source of immense power when realized and practiced properly. And we're going to look into all of this here and why. But first you might ask, so why are you telling everyone then? Because the situation of humanity, the situation we are in right now, is a very desperate one. We are in a very desperate state. Humanity is terribly asleep, and the fate of humanity is not a beautiful one. I think that most people regardless of scientific, religious, atheistic beliefs. I think most people sense this, that we can't continue living how we are living, that something will happen for the earth to save itself from the destructive humanity that lives on it. I talk about this a bit in my video on Capricorn, that we are currently at the end of a Kali Yuga age. In other words, it is not me or other people who have chosen to make this knowledge freely available. Divinity has made it available. The masters of the light, who live in the interior, superior worlds, have authorized this knowledge to go public in hopes that people will choose to save their souls. Again, this is why it was always kept secret in the past ages, because people don't like to hear that they don't have a soul, that they are asleep, mechanical, unconscious. People would prefer to live in religious fanaticism, of believing that's just in belief that someone magically will come to save them, and they don't need to exercise any responsibility at all, right? So people don't like to hear this, that we are unconscious, full of ego. The truth, the laws of nature, greater reality doesn't care about our beliefs. It's true. We don't have a soul. We are just a tiny spark of our soul. We only have a tiny spark of it, about 3% of it. 97% of it is taken up by ego, by our own darkness. And sexual alchemy is a supreme tool to liberate our bottled up darkness and turn it back into light, into the light of the soul. I recommend watching this video on the screen for a better explanation of our consciousness and why it's like this, all muddled up in our own ego, from the perspective of the astral level of our consciousness. And so this is why in almost every book and public lecture, Master Samael Aun-Weor, who is the main movement or mover of the Gnostic tradition in this modern age, this is why he always taught in every lecture and book about sexual alchemy, because this is the main key, the main facilitation of any master's awakening. It is the base philosophical stone of our great work. And the main message in this video that you will hear me talk about is that you should not take this practice lightly. It has to be used to kill the ego through meditation. If we practice it lightly, just for fun, for curiosity, not using it to kill the ego, you essentially, eventually, only damage yourself. Alchemy is a double-edged sword. It can be used to kill the evil within us and create virtue, the lights of virtue, or it can be used to kill virtue and create evil. So this is what we're going to look at here. Now, I have a couple of videos explaining how to dissolve the ego through meditation. I recommend first seeing the video on how to kill the ego, and then follow the educational guided meditation I made in order to understand the basic technique of it, so that you can then practice it by yourself without relying on the audio. I'll leave links in the description below. And I know, as there always is, 1 or 2 comments that say, kill ego, you shouldn't do that, or it's impossible. Well, such people don't understand what ego is, and they cannot understand it if they do not understand that they are asleep. I usually recommend, for total beginners, the audiobook by Eckhart Tolle. He has a good description about the ego. Or also try the book, The Treatise of Revolutionary Psychology by Master Samael Aun-Weor. Those should help. If not, perhaps you're not ready to understand that you can transcend your own mind and your own thoughts and all of the unconsciousness within you. You cannot understand ego if you do not feel the burn to awaken. That's not a criticism, it's just logic. We think we are one way, but in reality, we are another way. We don't see clearly in the mirror of self-observation because we are cut off from our divine nature. And as long as we don't see clearly, ego will always feel threatened as long as we are psychologically identified with it. Understand that ego is in the mind. The soul is not in the mind. Do you see how we are inverted people? The mind has trapped the soul. We need to change this around. The soul needs to conquer the mind. Our aim here is to purify and totally sanctify and transcend the mind. We want to comprehend clearly, precisely how our own mind keeps our consciousness asleep in order to escape from its claws and liberate ourselves and others from suffering. But sadly, people don't want to hear that they are themselves 100% responsible for their own suffering. Pride, lust, greed, anger, laziness, fear, hatred, jealousy, all these things blind the soul into self-deception. And that's fine. We're not preaching here. Everyone has the right to believe as they wish. But as said earlier, divinity, God, the truth, reality does not care about our beliefs. Facts and universal laws, science, exist beyond our beliefs. Beliefs are ultimately futile. What we need is experiential, evidential knowledge. I believe in God, I do not believe in God. That doesn't make a difference to facts. I believe in ego, I do not believe in ego. That doesn't make a difference to reality either. Facts exist beyond beliefs. Reality exists beyond beliefs. Psychological defects, psychic aggregates, these are other words for ego. Call it what you want. It is the I, the me, the false sense of psychological identifications with very strong energetic thought forms that exist within us, within our person. And they take up the energy of the soul, of the consciousness, and blackens it in this darkness. It keeps us in a state of hypnosis and psychological ego possession, keeping us asleep. Okay? This is the doctrine, the theory, the intellectual understanding. In reality, it's much deeper, right? But again, people do not like to hear it like this. We like to sugarcoat it and make it all fluffy and say, it's okay, you have ego, but there's a deeper, more real spirituality that we can integrate into our lives, and that's what humanity needs right now. You know, so people don't like to hear it. Look into the eyes of any angry person. They are clearly possessed, but they won't admit it. Why? Because they are psychologically identified and feel justified within that conditioned type of psychic negative emotion, feeling that it is okay to be angry. Sure, it's okay, but better if we can master ourselves through self-observation so that we can eliminate the causes of that destructive energy possessing us in the first place. In that way, we receive light. We liberate that energy and we rise into a higher level of being, which enables us then to understand higher levels of consciousness better. But this is very difficult, very difficult. This is the great work because we've had many past lives where we've been feeding and creating strong psychological egos that we mistakenly feel affectionate about. Understand that our egos, these baggages of our soul challenges, are psychic energies that we carry throughout each of our lives. Sexual alchemy gives us the strength, the force, the electricity to dissolve these internal elements that we carry within and rebirth ourselves anew. And while we're here understanding ego, what's important to understand too is that we don't just have one ego, but many, plural. This is the superior understanding of what ego really is. This is the energetic understanding of it. This is why Jesus said to a possessed man, "Come out of this man, you unclean spirit. What is your name?" And the possessed spirit, the ego replied through the man and said, "My name is Legion, for we are many." Legion is Latin for many. Legion is the ego. Ego is Latin for I, not the physical eyes, the psychological I. This I, or these many eyes, this legion of eyes, are not us. We should not have any sense of psychological identification with it. It is the enemy talked about in every sacred scripture. What we actually are is our consciousness, our inner divinity, our real inner being. We are pure consciousness in the depths of our soul, but we don't see it because we are covered up by the muck of ego. Okay, so this is important to understand when you're doing this work, that we are not ego. We are not insignificant thoughts in the head. We have to understand this precisely and clearly and see it. So we have many eyes, many hundreds and even thousands of psychological identifications within ourselves. For example, we have 3 brains and 5 centers. Within each center exists an abundance of egos, all with their own objective, their own desires, their own willpower. Today's human being is pulled in every direction by its own unconsciousness, its own unconscious chaos. Each I fighting to take control of our human machine. It's like different programs or pop-up programs on a computer fighting for your attention. And we're so used to this and blinded by this that we can't even see or concentrate on one thing for even 30 seconds, right? When we try to meditate, we can't because just chaos, right? You can self-observe it in you right now. We can do a sort of mini quick self-observation meditation here. Because remember, superficial New Age meditation likes to make us feel nice and peaceful, but that's not deeper, more profound, real meditation for advanced people. Real meditation has no ignorance. Real meditation sees everything for what it is right now. In this moment, in every level of our being, it sees everything. We want to see everything with our awareness and understand it directly, clearly, with clear light. So self-observe now. Maybe you're half listening to this with one ego enjoying some music on the side, half listening to what the person is actually saying on the screen. Perhaps there's another ego interpreting and twisting everything the person is saying on the screen according to its own psychological conditioning, its religious beliefs, scientific beliefs, whatever. Perhaps there is another strong ego in you right now, stressing about how you're going to pay the bills next month. Maybe within your motor instinctive center, there are egos which want to do many different things right now, completely stopping you from actually listening to this video. Way too mentally distracted by many types of preoccupations, not really able to penetrate into profound self-reflections and realizations as you listen, right? You open this video in order to have some sense of self-understanding, but we can't understand ourselves if the essence is trapped and we are directed by many egos. Maybe one ego is reacting to everything the speaker is saying right now and just wants to go get some food from the fridge or check your phone, check other tabs on your browser. Maybe your sexual center is planning and plotting to go and talk to a man or woman you're interested in, or to look at pictures on the internet, or what you're going to do tonight, what you're going to have for dinner. Self-observe. Feel in your intellectual and emotional centers the multitude of conflicting energies, conflicting ideas, judgments, feelings that you're having about all the things we're talking about here, right now. And you will see that you are not really here where you are right now, not fully. You're somewhere else, somewhere bottled up in so many types of conditioning. that's what we're all like, right? And for those people who say that, well, I am totally awake, well, that is wrong. We are totally asleep, and there is a huge, huge journey and path that we can take, right? As I said before, we are 3% awakened. When you start to awaken your consciousness by, let's say, up to 4%, maybe 5%, 10%, that's when people say they have profound spiritual experiences. Samadhi, satori, they start to realize deep things and start to have spiritual experiences. But remember that this is just another tiny spark of light that is being given to you. Okay, so even at 50% awakened consciousness, I mean, you're starting to be considered as a spiritual master at that point. Okay, so it's a huge, huge task, a huge journey. Okay, if you're a good meditator, if you have pristine concentration and you've developed clairaudience, you can even start to hear this chaos of the voices within you, ripping your being apart. This is the chaos, the darkness we live in, the hell that we are already in. Most people are scared that if they die, they go to hell. Hell is already here, around us, within us, okay? We are not real, authentic individuals with a defined will or personality. We are just a multitude of voices of predetermined programming by our own psychological unconscious processes. What a way to live, right? When we really, really see this, when we really self-observe this within the pure conscious awareness of our real individual being, when we recognize it clearly and understand how it makes us suffer and how it makes others suffer, then we say, okay, I'm going to pick up my sword now and take back my own will, take back my own soul, and stop being moved by random winds. And we say, I will remain unshaken against all winds, rooted within the center of my own being, totally self-mastered, totally self-possessed, and not possessed by the ego anymore. This is the spirit of the initiate, of the spiritual warrior who is ready to walk the path of self-knowledge, a tremendous path which takes time to dissolve, transmute, and refine the legion of ego within us and really start to align and become a more precise and refined individual. So I speak frankly because alchemy is a serious practice to finally awaken the Kundalini and merge with your real soul through the death of everything worldly within you. So this is not for fearful cowards, okay? This is for brave and courageous people ready to walk a higher path of spirituality, way beyond the merry-go-round, the circus of shallow New Age spirituality, which is mostly designed to entertain you, not awaken you. And it will even tell you Kundalini is dangerous. The practices taught in this video, in the links below as well, are not dangerous from these teachings of the Gnostic teachings. Maybe other so-called Kundalini exercises are dangerous. Probably, yes, but not the Gnostic ones. If you practice properly, there is no danger. The only danger is ego and egotistical mistakes. That's why we have to study, so that we don't fall and make mistakes. It's actually absurd to say that Kundalini is dangerous. Kundalini is not dangerous. Kundalini is your divine mother. Your mother doesn't want to hurt you. She loves you. She will never hurt you. Most people in New Age who are saying they've awakened Kundalini have not awakened Kundalini. They have awakened what we call in the Gnostic tradition the Kundabuffer. The Kundabuffer is the inverted tree of life where our egos live, where we live in our own internal, infernal hell. They're just giving power to ego. So we're going to look into this here as well. But for now, just remember, spirituality is not just about gaining light and going up into the heavens, we have a saying, in order to ascend, we have to descend. This means we gain light and consciously choose to go down into our own hells and actually see what is there and clean it up. Every legitimate master is a master of heaven, earth, and hell. This is why you often see images of Buddhas or angels dominating demons, and is also symbolized by Dante or Dante's Inferno, exploring the 9 levels of hell. I remember when I first started this path, I learned astral projection before this Gnostic knowledge of ego, and when I first heard about it, I said, okay, I will investigate this for myself, and I went into the astral within my own internal world of myself, and I went to my psychological house in the astral, and I saw my house, right? We all have a house that we live in the astral. And, well, I tried to go inside my house, but what I saw was many people. Chaos in the house. These were my own psychological entities. I could not even get into my own spiritual home in the astral because there was too much chaos. Crazy egos, dancing, fighting, partying, shouting. It was horrible to see, but it was the truth. So we all have this inner world that we have to discover. Real spirituality is not about always seeking the light, always feeling good and nice. Real spirituality is about seeing the reality of the darkness within us in order to know ourselves in a factual way, not a delusional way. It's not about lying to ourselves about who we are, just like Pinocchio. Pinocchio is not a real boy. He is a mechanical robotic machine. He is a puppet of the ego, right? He's not a real boy because he lies about himself, because he does not see who he truly is. Only once he really sees through the virtue of honesty can he then become a real boy. So, I'm just laying a little bit of foundation there for you about the ego and the tremendous pervasiveness of it on this path. And now I'm going to weave many elements together here for you. This should be especially enjoyable for my long-time viewers of this channel because I'm going to synthesize and put together all pieces of the puzzle for you here. You may have probably noticed how the videos on this channel have evolved over time, and it reflects the timeline of my own path, reflecting what I've gone through personally on this journey of discovery in order. So to explain simply, if you followed my channel from the beginning, you will see that I was first brought to this path of spirituality through the fascination of astral projection. I asked divinity to show me the reality of astral projection, and I had incredible experiences. But then I realized I can't astral project every night. I'm not really enlightened at all, so why? So then I focused and started to work on comprehending and transcending the ego in its many multitude of ways, right? Great. I started the psychological work, but then I said, wow, that's an extremely difficult task. How can I accelerate this process on all levels of my being? Then the sexual mysteries were then revealed to me. So I do that. It's immensely helpful, but still I say, wow, that's tremendously difficult too. So what's the answer here, and what's the purpose behind all of this? The key here is to combine all of these practices and let them complement each other. Always practice psychological observation and comprehension. Always strive to penetrate into the superior worlds within yourself, i.e. the astral worlds, the mental worlds, etc., where the masters live, where the great reality lives, right? And apply all of this approach to the sexual energy within you through transmutation and sexual alchemy. That way, you transform yourself in a very deep way, and this creates the solar bodies of consciousness. So let me go into this even more clearly right now. As unconscious beings, if we astral project right now, we are using our lunar astral body. What is the lunar astral body? Everyone has one. It is comprised of our ego. It is responsible for creating the unconscious, conditioned dream world of our psyche. The most real and legitimate astral travelers, the legitimate astral masters, do not dream. Dreams are for those who are asleep. Okay? Remember, every time we go to sleep, consciousness leaves the body. And in the same way I told you earlier to observe the chaos in yourself, that same chaos continues as we sleep in a lunar, mechanical way in the astral dimension. We wake up in the morning and remember so many nonsensical dreams. These dreams reflect our own internal state of egos. Now, what would happen if we completely dissolved all our egos? Well, one can then no longer dream. And so what happens then if we sleep at night? If there is no ego, there are no dreams. But consciousness still leaves the body. It still continues out into non-physical reality. And so, well, what is left to that individual's perception? Only reality, the higher reality, the truth, the real higher dimensions that can be seen more clearly and objectively and not subjectively, right? Our consciousness no longer lives in the Kundabuffer, in the illusion of Maya, but it starts to live gradually in the real tree of life, the actual reality, powered by Kundalini, not by the Kundabuffer. And so we do this with our solar astral body that we attain and that we create over time through efforts in this work. And that is created through sexual alchemy and death of ego. So it is through sexual alchemy that we can transform ourselves at a base level. Because just how we were created physically through sex, we also created all of our own egos through sexual passions and sexual desires. Remember that lust is not just about desire for sex. Lust is connected to and is the root of all other egos. If you kill lust, if you kill the root of all egos, all the other egos will eventually starve and die too. So this is a question we can reflect on. Are we going to use our sexual energy to merge with God, or use desire to stay within our own inferno? Well, sexual alchemy is a way to understand intimately our sexual brain and what is really going on there and how it connects to all of our other ego identifications, okay? This is about discovering ourselves. Remember that. Self-knowledge, okay? So we want to understand where all of our desires are being directed to, what it's all related to, and when we begin to see it all, then we can dive into our own creative force of sexual energy in alchemy to dissolve old egoic patterns and instead create new patterns through love and devotion which feed the soul, and you will become a more present person in the moment, right? Rooted in your being instead of feeding the ego. So in sexual union, we are working directly with the highest creative forces of nature, of divinity. Remember, white Tantra is only possible between a man and a woman. Man is the positive current, woman is the negative current. When you combine these two together, there are no longer just two forces, but three forces that creates light. The positive and negative combined create the spark of electricity needed to ignite the neutral force of light. This is the Holy Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. This is only possible between the intelligent connection between the lingam and the yoni. These are the two forces in nature. This is a law of nature that was created to generate light, life, and electricity. Only a man and a woman can create a baby. Only a man and a woman can create life together. But here we are not seeking to give birth to physical babies, but instead to give birth to a new type of consciousness within us. Remember, as alchemists, we are working with the raw physical materials of matter, of nature. The word material comes from the Latin word materia, which derives from mater, which means mother. This is why it's instructed to be always prayerful and mindful towards your internal divine mother or your divine mater, your divine mother Kundalini, who will help you with all of this work because she is found in the Prima Materia, which is the substance regarded as the original material of the universe, the original source of all things. So the basis of alchemy is to reduce imperfect elements through fire back to the original source from which it came from which then it can be transmuted into something better. See this quote by Master Samael Onveyor. Each thing can be disarranged within its own elements with the help of heat. We can disarrange ice into water because water is the element of ice. Therefore, all metals of the earth can be disarranged into mercury because mercury is the prima materia of all metals. The human being can be disarranged in the semen because this is the element that he emerged from. So remember, the basis of alchemy is not a mental thing of identifications, of mere opinions, feelings, sensations, but instead we're able to conquer all of that to transcend all of our usual senses and not be psychologically identified with anything in life through this work. Alchemy creates a spark of light to peer into the unmanifested world of creation within ourselves. We need the positive, negative, and neutral charge in order to do that. Take two positive charges, put them together. Will electricity be created? No. Take two negative charges together. What energy will be created? Nothing, right? The scientific laws of nature did not create it that way. What we want is to use the physical science of nature and utilize and incarnate that energy physically. Not thinking we love someone, but actually, electrically being inflamed in love within every cell and atom of the chakras. This is not a matter of thought. It is a matter of raw materia. To transmute the raw base metals of materia to the gold of the spirit. So through this practice, we enter into our own sexual laboratory of our sexual brain and seek to illuminate it with light and comprehend it. This takes tremendous willpower, but this is the power of this great work. This is the key. It's not something to be played with. It's something to be handled with utmost reverence and sacredness and acknowledgement of its divinity, of its divine nature, and should only be used to illuminate oneself, one's darkness, so that we may transform ourselves into pure light. This is why Jesus said to be as wise as a serpent. The serpent is the sexual symbol of Kundalini. It is not good or bad. It is good and bad, depending on how you use your sexual energy. It is the tree of good and evil that we have to conquer, that we have to comprehend and master. As Jesus said, it is a power we need to be as wise as, not to be a slave of, which is our current condition. Now, I know this is a lot. There will be plentiful resources in the description below in order to understand all of this better. But Look, it's very simple. The purpose of sexual alchemy is to attain light, to dissolve one's egos. That's it. It's about spiritual rebirth and deep transformation. But we can't understand how to do that if we don't first learn how to meditate on oneself throughout one's life, with the intention of seeing the greater reality within. So just take note that a lot of people fall in love with the Gnostic teachings very quickly, and they feel this superior type of sexuality, which is also called supra-sexuality. They feel it to be something very beautiful, which it absolutely is, right? But it is not the main point of Gnosis, not the main point of all of this. The main point is meditation. Continued, observed meditation throughout one's life. We can't peer into the mind of God. We can't peer into the heart of our own being without refined concentration of our awareness within ourselves, okay? We have to become illuminates, right? We need light within ourselves. So sexual alchemy won't magically save you by just practicing it. It needs to be combined with a psychological type of revolution, with a sense of continuity of purpose throughout one's life. Because remember that temptation will always be there too, and it can make you fall and convert back into your old ways again at any time, at any moment, resurrecting all the egos that you have previously dissolved. With more force, more light, comes more responsibility. The higher you ascend, the higher you fall. If you fall, of course. You don't have to. So, it is not a game. Life is like a game, yes, certainly. But when it comes to alchemy, alchemy is not the video game, because we're actually getting in touch with the creator or the creation of the video game itself. And so you don't want to mess up the coding of the game, okay? You just want to seek to understand the coding, and that's it, with the light of consciousness. And so what is this light that we are receiving in alchemy? Remember that Christ is within the heart of all creation. And so it is the Christ energy that is within the seed of our sexuality. The Christ is found in our seed, our sexual seed. If you read the Bible and ever see the word seed, it is pointing towards your sexual seed. And when you read it like this, it starts to take on a whole new meaning when you see it. Okay? It is the Christ seed that needs to be nourished and sprouted into the Kundalini tree of life. Remember, I'm not talking about Jesus. I'm talking about the universal Christ energy that exists in all things. And so, if we are receiving so much immense light in alchemy, but still have the animal ego alive in us, and we don't intend to dissolve it, then where will that energy go? It will be fed to our egos within us if we're not careful, right? Making it pretty much impossible to master sexual alchemy. But more importantly, we are just simply fueling evil within us at that point. And that's not good, right? For ourselves or anyone. We have to renounce the ego if we want to practice alchemy. You see, if we receive all of this marvelous creative force, but do not focus on disintegrating all the egotistical patterns in our psyche, becoming total illuminates, then we become what we call a Hasnamussen, someone who is both an angel and a demon, talking esoterically, okay? Meaning the person has two centers of gravity. One part of us wants to attain spiritual liberation and help others, and the other part still has ego will alive within. I talk about this in the video on Sagittarius. So if we ever discard, avoid, forget, or neglect observing and meditating upon and comprehending our many egos that we carry within us, this is what we become, and we don't really make any progress. Remember that Christ is the perfection of man, and that type of man is not concerned with himself, but only concerned for others, his brothers and sisters of humanity. A Christified master works for humanity, not for himself. They are true bodhisattvas. You know, some people ask, how do I really get rid of ego? Should I feel love for myself? Should I hate myself? How do we really get rid of this inverted tree of life, of this Kundabuffer? Well, meditate on why we must feel we should do anything to ourselves. Some people say, love yourself. Others say, hate yourself. Others say, be compassionate towards yourself. But a crude but accurate example of that is that these are all forms of self-fornication, really. All this self-love and self-hate, it's all the same. Our ordinary egoic state of consciousness is so self-involved and so narcissistic that we can't even help but think about ourselves all the time. The higher goal is to reach a state where we only ever think of others, to be concerned for others instead of being self-concerned and self-centered. This is called Christ-centrism, or also Bodhichitta. It is impossible to progress spiritually without this. Okay? So, the simple lesson here is that if you try to practice alchemy with no meditation, no fighting against your animal passions, no conscious willpower to kill the bull, as explained in the first video on this, you will see that obviously you will fail, because there is no force, no conscious willpower being developed against lust and the legion of ego within. Okay, so you can meditate on what Master Samael said here. Temptation is fire. Triumph over temptation is light. Okay, so white Tantra is a way to turn sex into love. And we do that gradually, bit by bit, it's a gradual process, by developing willpower to transmute lust into love. This takes time, it takes practice and patience, and bit by bit, sex turns less and less into an expression of animal lust and more into a profound and intimate meditation on ego, death of ego, understanding Christ energy blossoming within us, and developing bodhicitta, this sense of sacrifice for everyone, for the world. So you see, in alchemy, we can begin to develop and raise so much divine energy, this divine loving energy of bliss within the center of ourselves, that it just, within the ecstasy of it, it begins to totally obliterate any sense of selfishness, self-centeredness, of ego, and we connect to the heart of universal energy when practiced properly, through meditation as well. And this universal energy that we connect to inherently encompasses intelligent compassion for all beings. You see, it is natural. It's not something forceful or forced. It's not like you have to say, okay, I have to love others. I have to love others. When you practice it properly, you will see it, not through force, the energy itself of Christ within your heart inherently, innately has love for all beings, everything within creation, okay? In just total love, it has total harmony, beauty, ecstasy, samadhi. It's pure light, pure light. And whenever we continue to see ego elements throughout our lives, as we continue practicing within us, we can better recognize it for what it is when we see the ego. We can see it more clearly and use prayer to electrocute it with this Christic force, this electrical force, okay? Because right now, when we don't have a lot of energy and we see ego within us, we usually get overwhelmed, identified, upset with ourselves. We feel demotivated and discouraged. But it's because we don't feel the strength of Christ, of this God energy, in order to dissolve it, okay? And so it's all about developing this strength and ability to stay within our Christ-centered consciousness instead of getting easily swayed by our ego legion-centered consciousness. So you see, this is how through alchemy, the solar astral body is created through the electricity of divine electric love of Eros. We receive light in order to perceive the sensations from the lunar astral body. This body is the world of our emotions, okay? So you will also start to see through the body of your mental body, the body of your thoughts, okay? And these bodies need to be transformed into solar energy, into pure light, into gold. And so, as I just mentioned, it's not just about creating the solar astral body, but also the mental solar body of our thoughts, and also the causal solar body of our will, right? We have many wills within us, different egos having will powers trying to take us here and there. We don't do our practices, our meditation practices, because we have this lack of conscious will from our being, right? We don't know how to follow our intuition, to listen to our heart. We have this conscience that says, okay, you should meditate at least 30 minutes a day to begin with. But we don't do it, right? Because we have all of this, this lower will in our causal solar body, okay? So we have to purify all of these, and eventually we will also connect to the Buddhic and Atmic bodies as well. And so you can probably understand now why it's esoterically described that by doing this great work, our sexual waters of Mercury changes from black to white, from lunar to solar, from ego to Christ, from Antichrist to Christ. Okay? Now, a common question I see is, when do I stop in alchemy in the sexual act? You stop when your sexual energy has been transmuted. That's it. Very simple. In alchemical terms, we say the mercury has been dried up. And through alchemy, if you practice it properly, burning the energies of lust into love and light, then the mercury will be just dried up. There will be no more physical sexual desire because the energy has been raised into the head and heart, and there's a feeling of great well-being. Note that I said there will be no more physical sexual desire. There might still be psychic, mental, emotional sexual desire. Most likely that is your lust. It's not the same as the raw materia of the sexual energy of the physical body. So you need to pray to your Divine Mother. You need to self-observe and ask her to remove all of that lust that's still affecting you. As mentioned in the first video about alchemy, sex with your partner should be initiated in a totally natural way, not plotted and planned like the ego does all the time. It happens naturally through romantic harmony. That means when the electrical biology of both of you become sexually magnetized to each other and you both feel the magic of Eros between you both in your atmosphere, okay? This is the sexual magnetism of your sexual physical biology, okay? So this is the work. Repeat and continue this work throughout many years without ever spilling the cup of Hermes, spilling the semen, reaching orgasm, reaching the spasm of the nervous system, and you will have a lot of energy to work with in order to illuminate your consciousness in a very profound way. It is difficult, but with great effort you will be successful and reach great heights on your spiritual path than you have ever done before. So remember, it is difficult because you essentially open the doors of your unconsciousness to yourself. And that's why I said before, you have to be brave and courageous to see your own deepest and darkest secrets and fears. Okay, so it is very challenging. It is like literally climbing a mountain. Okay, there is a very good quote by the Dalai Lama that you should always keep in mind, which has also helped me over many years too. It is worth remembering that the time of greatest gain in terms of wisdom and inner strength is often that of greatest difficulty. Okay, and what I just spoke about too is a good measurement to see if you're practicing properly. If you're just going into sex for the fun of it, just to stimulate lustful animal passions, then you will simply be fueling lust and carnal passions, feeling agitated and unsatisfaction, okay? The ego is never satisfied, so it's important. If you want to take this vow, this commitment to do this practice, you have to renounce lust. Or should I say more precisely, because lust will keep presenting itself to you, it's more precise to say, I renounce giving into lust. I renounce identifying with lust, okay? So good mantra to say to yourself all the time. I am not identifying with any of these sensations that are happening, okay? And so if you go into this practice of alchemy with the intention of transmuting the energy, keeping your mind and emotions on divinity, then it will be transmuted, okay? The energy will settle in the brain and in the heart. But if you find yourself completely out of control in sex, not being able to exercise any form of detachment and conscious self-observation, and you're totally identified with lust, then obviously the energy will begin to go downwards and outwards instead of going inwards and upwards. Best thing to do here is to separate from your partner and go and practice pranayama by yourself. Okay? So for those who are wondering, what about single people? Where do they come into all of this? This is the practice. The way for single people to transmute their sexual energy is through pranayama. Okay, so make that distinction. Sexual transmutation using pranayama is for single people. Sexual alchemical union of white Tantra is for couples. Okay, couples can use pranayama too, but they don't need to use it as much. So pranayama means to use specific breathing practices to move prana higher up into the body. Prana being the creative sexual energy. Okay, it is essential to go through a period of practicing this by yourself first in order to get in touch with your own sexual forces, okay, before you practice alchemy. If you're currently single, then perfect. You have the opportunity to master this now, and when you get a partner, you will not find alchemy too difficult. And actually, practicing pranayama by yourself, retaining and transmuting your own energy, you will create life within yourself, okay? You will create this energy spark that I was talking about before, but it will be very little. It's compared to a candle, right? We can, as a single person, we can have a candle within us that creates light, creates a little fire. But alchemy, it creates a whole sun, okay? That's how great the force is. And so if you're already in a couple and now you've just heard about this knowledge and you want to practice it straight away, it is harder, and you should really, this is just personal advice, you should really devote more time in your day to practicing pranayama and meditation by yourself, and maybe also do it before you go and practice alchemy. It will be easier to have control of your whole being. So the most simple pranayama is inhaling slowly and gently and retaining the breath for 30 seconds or more, feeling that the energy of your sexual center is being raised to the brain and heart, okay? Be careful, because you're getting in touch with your sexual energy here. So this has to be done in a very relaxed way, a mentally relaxed way, focused on divinity, on your own being, barely any exertion or any force, natural and relaxed. If you're forcing yourself to do this type of breath work, you're doing it wrong. There should be no tension or contractions in the body because that will just excite and stimulate your prana too much, okay? For this, we need to practice deep relaxation before prana, okay? So as a very simple guidance, every time we meditate, we need to practice in 3 stages. The first one being 1, relaxation, 2, pranayama, and then 3, meditation, okay? Now there are more steps. I highly recommend this playlist about learning authentic meditation. It is by far the best instruction for deep meditation I've ever found, and it will explain to you the importance of relaxation, how to properly do pranayama. If you're currently doing lots of breathwork exercises that you found online, it is essential that you watch this, and I'll explain why afterwards. It will also explain how our sexual energy is the fuel for our meditation and awakening as well. Definitely watch those videos if you're serious about all of this. And to explain all of this deeper with a real life example, my good friend Emmanuel, who I made a video about recently on his 3 books that I recommended in this video on the screen, which I also recommend to check out. He talks about alchemy there as well in his own ways. He shared a very relevant astral experience recently about pranayama or breathwork and the effects of doing it in an aggressive and forceful way. So recently, while he was traveling, he moved to a new rental, and next to it was a yoga shala, a place where people go and do yoga, right? And this yoga center had been quiet for quite a bit while he was living there, but then one day the classes resumed. And in his astral experience, he entered a room where many people were playing with electronic handheld devices, and there were very large speakers placed around the room that were facing the people. They began to drive and push the speakers extremely hard, too hard, with their devices. The speakers started to violently shake and break apart. The cones were ripped and the inner magnets melted. And when he woke up, he found out that there was a breath workshop going on at this yoga center. And so my friend went and sat and listened to this large group of people violently forcing their breath in and out of their bodies. And it's quite clear that he had seen this in the astral. He had seen this class in the astral and the effects of this violent type of breathing. And of course, in that experience, the broken speakers were a result of forcing too much vital current through them, okay? Remember that in breathwork, transmutation, pranayama, alchemy, we are working through the breath with the sexual electrical currents of the vital etheric body, and it has to be handled gently, with careful attention and total relaxation, deep and profound relaxation. So we have to always trust our intuition and handle our energy with great care, to take care of our speakers, our body, our chakras, not to be violent towards it, and always being careful to send the correct voltage and control, okay? Always being mindful of your breath and not treating it carelessly. Be careful not to damage your delicate inner nervous system where the subtle power of your chakras reside, okay? And so in a couple of my videos, I teach the Hamsa pranayama, right? And for the purposes of a video, I make sounds, but ideally there should be little to no sounds, okay? It should be totally relaxed. But I have seen online these random videos of people doing really aggressive and violent breath work. It is a total mistake. Be careful of the types of pranayama that you follow. I will put links down below for many types of different pranayama. They are all completely safe as long as you do it gently, okay? So as mentioned earlier, transmutation and alchemy is a way to rework and polarize our energy, our base energy. And whether you're working with pranayama by yourself or in alchemy with your partner, we have to observe our internal states very clearly. If you breathe with lust, you will gain more lust. All right? This is something, there are no rigid rules here. We just have to understand this in an intimate, energetic way, okay? And on the opposite side, if you breathe or practice in remembering God in a peaceful way, in a totally relaxed manner, then you will polarize your prana in the correct way, okay, towards divinity. And as you do so, entering samadhi becomes much more easy. So this is a mistake that many students make, that while doing pranayama, they become very tense. Their shoulders, hands, arms, neck, mouth become very tense, right? Like this. And they aren't doing anything beneficial, really. They are just breathing hard. So I highly recommend one of the best lectures I've ever heard on pranayama and sexual energy, which is this one on the screen on the Glorian website. The link is down below. And so you might have noticed it's difficult to practice transmutation as a single at first, right? Refraining from things like masturbation, pornography, and other temptations into old habits. And what we often end up doing to try and overcome those addictions, because we're struggling so hard, is by forcing ourselves through repression, okay? We're trying to repress the energy, trying to just renounce sex completely, or to try and do it in some kind of masculine, aggressive way. I'm going to do this and that. That is also wrong. We're not meant to repress sex in any way. We just have to learn how to calmly work with and observe our sexual energy and intelligently harness it and direct it into the higher spheres of our being, okay? Through superior emotions such as love, bliss, spiritual adoration for divinity, admiring your partner in true love, focusing on God, divinity, Christ, doing healthy things such as normal sports or just going on nice relaxing walks, okay? So this is why we need help from divinity. This is why we need prayer, because we have no strength. We are weak. Pray to your divine mother for help if you are struggling with any of these practices. Pray to God from your heart, not just saying words, but actually, really saying a prayer, feeling what you need and what you want and what you hope for from divinity, from your higher self, from your heart. So while you're doing these transmutational practices, don't be distracted while doing the practices. Be attentive, watchful, stay prayerful. See the energy coming up the spine, filling you with divine light, and continue more consistently doing it every day. You have to control your energy every day. If you're ignoring it at any point, really, then it will be doing other things, okay? Doing other unconscious things, moving certain things in the world of the ego. Okay, so you can see now why this is for advanced practitioners. It is totally practical. It is not for people who only want spiritual practices for 5 minutes a day or once a week. This is eventually a moment-to-moment practice every day from moment to moment. There are no shortcuts, unfortunately. You can't fake it. You can't bypass anything or take 20 steps ahead. You can't fool yourself. You can't fool divinity, right? You can't outsmart Kundalini or God, because God knows who you are completely, okay? God, the Divine Mother, Kundalini, knows you better than you know yourself, okay? What you think you know about yourself, what we think we know about ourselves, is just ego. Right? And ego is delusional, right? It's Maya. It's this veil of illusion, and it's not part of this greater reality, this deeper intelligence that knows ourselves. This is why prayer is really powerful. So through all this, you really start to awaken Kundalini. You really start to connect to that intelligence within you, within this deeper aspect of our being. But if ego exists, your progress will stop. If you're asking, where are my powers, for example? Well, it's because your ego wants powers, and powers are not given easily from divinity, okay? You have to prove yourself This is what is called the degrees of initiation, right? This is why in Freemasonry there are 33 degrees on the spinal vertebra. Kundalini will ascend in each degree according to the merits of your heart, right? According to the merits of your success of dissolving ego. And so each degree, with every challenge, comes an opportunity to see some kind of darkness and liberate the light from that consciousness, from understanding it, observing it directly, okay? So you have to really change. It's an intense practice, okay? This takes time and patience. This is why Jesus said, with patience, ye will possess your souls. Now, while on the topic of all of this, I also want to address something that's also very important and that I've seen a lot of in the comments on my channel. You'll notice in my 3 main videos on sexual energy, the first about sexual transmutation, then the one about white Tantra, and now this one where we're going much deeper, right? You may notice how each one goes up in octaves in level of understanding. This video is of much deeper understanding. And so with that, without criticizing anyone, I want to make the quite obvious statement that those who are subscribed to the NoFap movement, which is followed by millions of people today through books, YouTube, Reddit, etc. This new sexual movement, that this is just my personal observation of this, okay? This new type of sexual movement is clearly of a lower octave, a very low octave, okay? It's reflective or an expression of when we first struggle beginning in retaining and transmuting our sexual energy as a single. But NoFap is much lower than that, okay? I've looked into NoFap a lot, and because, well, it just doesn't teach you how to transmute your energy. All it says is retain your energy. Just don't experience orgasm. Like, come on, men, let's just don't look at women, and that's that, okay? Nothing else. It doesn't teach you how to work with energy, to work with prana. And most people involved in NoFap even refuse to take a partner, praising the single life as if it's something superior, okay? Nobody, barely anybody, progresses in it unless they have some really great instincts, natural intuition. But really, most people don't progress in it. Why? Because they do not understand how to turn Mercury itself from black to white, to purify the energy itself and harness it, like we've been seeing here, okay? All they think is to retain the semen, and that's it. If you want to progress in this, you have to learn meditation and pranayama. It's essential. To people who follow NoFap, this is a warning. Make sure that you are not following the sentiments of an abstinent priest. Do not follow sexual abstinence. If you think anything that I've said in this video is dangerous, sexual abstinence is much worse. Sexual abstinence is the total renunciation, denial, and even hatred of sex. True renunciation of sex is only reserved for spiritual masters who have completed the sexual work of creating their astral, mental, causal, buddhic, atmic bodies, okay? There's a great work behind that. And they don't need sex anymore because they've fully transformed and become masters. Their Christ seed has developed and grown to cosmic heights, okay? Into true gods. But for us, who are just seeds in the mud of the earth, this type of psychology of trying to completely deny or ignore sex creates what we call in the Gnostic teachings poisonous energetic vibrations that rots our sexual energy and poisons our mind, okay? It cuts you off from your being. In the roots of all religions, they all taught the sexual mysteries. Then, over centuries, humanity distorted the teachings and we ended up with sexual abstinence. And we all know where this type of poisonous psychology led to with famously perverse abstinent priests, right? So it's unfortunate that most religions degenerated in many ways. Even symbolically, you can see now, probably, right, why they do the sign of the cross inverted. They do it like this, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, right? This is wrong. This hand mudra sign is creating the sign of the inverted cross, the Antichrist. The correct way to move your hand is to your sexual center, like this, in the name of the Father, of the Son, down here, and of the Holy Spirit. That creates the cross, and it's the proper way to bless yourself. Okay, so anyway, these poisonous vibrations don't always manifest as perverted priests, of course, right? That's just an extreme example, but they can take the form of many things too. The main thing in general, just to speak generally, is becoming obsessive with things, okay? It's like there's so much sexual energy there and it needs to go somewhere, but because the person hates sex, the energy doesn't go where it's supposed to, into the sexual organ. So it starts to develop with perhaps certain strong negative moods, thinking about certain things, certain compulsive behaviors. A good example is when teenagers go through puberty without any of these teachings, and they don't know how to handle the energy and start becoming very moody, angry, always eating. They develop addictions, etc. Okay, so something good to reflect on. And in the case of people in NoFap, what I've seen is that they've become, or many of them become, obsessed with the gym. Okay, again, just like teenagers, they don't know how to handle their sexual energy in any other way, and they develop these behaviors, right? If you go on the NoFap forum, you will see many people talking in caps lock saying, we're going to do this, right? They're very intense people. They don't know how to retain and restrain and harness the energy in a loving, divine way, in a calm way. Okay, so these poisonous vibrations happen when you do not have sex, but also don't transmute your energy. So you just try to forget about it and focus on other things. The energy needs to be channeled properly because it's always being generated. Our sexual organ is a generative organ. It generates light, generates energy, but we are just so used to degenerating it by expelling it. Okay, so we need to learn to purify it and harness it. But what happens if we neither expel it nor harness it? Well, it still keeps generating energy, you see? So we can't go against our nature and just ignore it, okay? So think of a nuclear power plant. If you retain and generate nuclear energy inside it, but don't distribute the energy to the homes, okay? Let's think of it as the chakras, and give the homes light, what will happen to all that energy being contained and locked in the nuclear power plant? Well, obviously, disaster will occur, right? A nuclear disaster, a reactor meltdown. This great volatile energy that just needs to go somewhere, okay? So what's happening with all of this forced repression from this abstinent type of mindset is that people are just running away or forcing their lust away. It's like forcing alive people, alive egos underground, right? Punching them, trying to bury them violently, aggressively, but they always come back with even more force. In the astral, it will manifest into perhaps dreams of running away from people, maybe running away from dogs, bears, snakes, okay? Or simply it might just manifest as having wet dreams as well, okay? So understand that if you have egos of lust inside your person, you must acknowledge them. Otherwise, you will never be permanently successful in these sexual practices. You must not run away from lust. You must confront it, see it, and work with it, okay? But not in a violent way. It has to be done through love, meditation, prayer, spiritual practices, okay? So we should not hate sex. Sex is the creative force of God. Actually, it is a gift. It might seem like all this sexual energy is like, oh, why do we have all this? It is given to us by nature, by Mother Nature, in order for us to heal and have life and be happy, okay? So we just have to learn to use it, to master it, that's all. So if it is not used to create a physical baby externally, we can create a spiritual baby internally, okay? Meaning our internal Christified solar bodies of consciousness. You can meditate on the image of the Divine Mother holding the baby Christ. This should make sense to you now in a more specific way, a more scientific way. If you followed along properly, meditating on everything that I've been saying, okay, on the divine materia of Christ, okay, so if it's not making sense, well, instead of forming mere opinions on this, on sexuality, we need to comprehend it practically within our own being, right? About how it affects us psychologically, emotionally. We have to be practical, spiritually. See how it affects us in the astral dimension, in the mental dimension, how it affects our physical body, our willpower, how it agitates certain egos if we do certain things, okay? According to how we think and feel in any moment, always observing the sexual energy, okay? This all requires constant effort, in-depth, intimate self-observation, okay? Daily, from moment to moment. We have to become scientifically and accurately minded to observe the evidence of our human machine in practice, to know how the nuclear power plant really works, to know what transmutes the energy through higher emotions, devotion, love of God, right, etc. And also to see what makes the energy descend and spill out, okay, such as negative emotions of lust, anger, ambition, greed, identification with the world. And if you see a lot of those men on NoFap who say they are successful, saying they retain for so many months, but they're extremely muscly because they have no idea how to retain this energy in any other way than hitting the gym 24/7, well, this is something that you should also be careful about. Sexual energy is not controlled by physical willpower, okay? Sexual energy, this raw materia, is a physical thing, yes, as semen, but we need to connect to its higher spiritual counterpart in order to control it properly. It is controlled through mental willpower, okay? Sexual energy is in the mind. If the mind is perfectly controlled, then so too is the sexual energy. As I said at the beginning of this video, the mind is keeping the soul trapped. We need to liberate and transcend the mind, okay? So for this, we need to be in touch intimately with every part of our being, always meditating on the 3 brains and the 5 centers, as you can see on the screen. Okay, so this is why we need meditation. Meditation being the act of pure attention, pure observation, seeing everything, noticing everything in our experience, okay? So those people practicing NoFap, remember, the way is not suppression. It is not contracting of muscles or forcing anything or forcing any kind of ideologies, okay? It's the opposite. It's relaxation, physical and mental relaxation, and harnessing the energy for mental illumination of our inner psychic movements within our consciousness, and to comprehend those movements, okay? Those psychic movements. To comprehend our nature, our emotions, the way we think, what really leads to lust, right? What really leads to these negative habits. To know really what kind of person we are from the perspective of God, Okay? As I said, God knows us better than we know ourselves. So we need to know ourselves deeply. Self-knowledge, temet noske, know thyself. This is why self-knowledge is the greatest power. Okay? So this is why everyone who is struggling with NoFap or transmutation, it's simply better to find a wife or husband. It basically means you're ready for that, okay? Someone you can love and adore and be an object of your god of Eros, your sacrifice of your ego. Learn how to give your life to someone. This will teach you Bodhichitta, sacrifice, the Christ energy. NoFap does not teach love, therefore it is ineffective, because love is the magical ingredient to raise the energy properly. There's no other way. It's impossible to succeed in transmutation or alchemy without love. It's impossible to progress spiritually without love. NoFap is not congruent with the attainment of this Christ level of consciousness or Bodhichitta, because it's only concerned with oneself. The true harnessing of sexual energy, of the creative Christic force within us, is, in its very nature, in its root, it is Bodhichitta. Bodhichitta has no concern for oneself, but only for others. This is how we liberate ourselves and others in the process. Okay? We become real human beings in the kingdom of God, in the real kingdom on earth. So there's something that Master Samael said, if you want to know if you are truly in love. He said, ask yourself this: would you die for your beloved? Would you be capable of giving your life so that your beloved could live? Okay. Reflect on it deeply. If the answer is no, then that's not true love. Now, at first, I had the same reaction most of you are probably having now, saying, wait, die for them? Not quite sure about that, Master Samael, right? But honestly, today I can say, after practicing for all these years, all of this, seeing who I truly am with my own egos, I know that I am nothing. I'm worse than nothing, you know, right? And of course, I would die for my wife if I had to. In the past, I had way too much self-love to feel that way. Way too much pride, okay? You have to feel that way. You have to at least strive to that level, because that is love. To die for your beloved. To die for the divine mother energy that is within you. That is love. That is self-sacrifice, from which the sacred Christ seed can be born within you. Now, if you don't feel that way, remember, love is not found. Love is made. Okay? If you progress with the death of ego and alchemy properly, you will begin to start to experience true love. And of course, the rule is always never emit your bodhicitta, your sexual energy. Make the vow, because that's the energy from which the soul is formed. That's why Jesus said, that which is born of the flesh is of the flesh, and that which is born of the spirit is of the spirit. Sexual chastity creates spiritual elevation. The opposite creates spiritual degeneration. Black Tantra is about feeding oneself, gratifying desires. That's all, okay? So this is something we can meditate on. How much of our internal consciousness is Christ-centered? How much of our being is concerned about others instead of ourselves? If we have this Christ-centered consciousness where we say that we want to help others, are we just doing it for our own selfish attainment, for money, for fame, for pride? Okay, you have to reflect on it very deeply in order to really recognize what bodhicitta and Christ energy is. So The part of ourselves that is concerned for ourself is the Antichrist, the selfish ego force, the one that is genuinely, unconditionally compassionate towards all beings, even your enemies, is the Christ. You can see now why it is said, Jesus Christ died for our sins, because he had Bodhichitta, sacrifice for humanity. Sacrifice for humanity doesn't mean just doing good deeds. It means that the very reason we awaken our consciousness and walk the spiritual path is to help others. And through that, of course, we realize we can't help others until we help ourselves. Okay? And I hope most of you also understand that I've not been trying to convince you of anything in this video as dogma, okay? You are free to accept or reject these teachings. What's important is to remain open. And all I can say is you might not understand how all of this right now will help you, but what I can say is if you practice with determination and a firm resolve because you really want to know God and attain your soul for liberation, because you are really sick of living a mundane material life and are tired of suffering, tired of your egos, and just finally want to be reborn for divinity and practice alchemy, then you will see in your own path, with your own progression, that you will rise in levels of being, in higher octaves of yourself, gradually. You will start to see certain ego patterns completely dissolve away as long as you stay on the path. You will see a new type of indescribable fire emerge within you. That is, of course, if you are practicing and not spilling the energy, you will see through devotional, intense practice that keeping your mind always on God, you will see that through all of this, always keeping your mind on divinity, that something new, something so simple but sublime, exquisite, sacred is arising within you. It feels sort of delicious to the body, like sweet nectar dripping to the heart. This energy, it brings about a certain sacred silence to the human machine, an indescribable silent song of deep humility that brings about a true stillness in one's own atmosphere, in one's own aura and inner worlds. Like a great gong has been hit and the masses of egos within just come to a stop. Because everyone stops when they truly see the Christ. This is the meaning of the apocalypse and the coming of Christ in the Bible. Christ is the sexual seed of man, and only the Christ can bring about the end of the world through the development of that seed. Not the end of the external world, but the end of our chaotic inner psychological city. This is why everyone these days are so obsessed with the end of the world, because deep down we all sense this urgency that we need to end our own world. We need to dissolve our own internal world of the ego, of the legion within. And it's obvious that if we don't, then it's going to materialize eventually in a physical way, that this end of the world. Okay, so through death of ego and arising of the Christ within us, a deep mystical transformation occurs on all levels of our being, and all of our previously scientific mindsets of analyzing and comprehending the ego starts to become at awe at the miracle of the Christic force of energy that cannot be explained psychologically, because the ego can be explained psychologically, right? But when you start to have this miraculous force arise within you, it really truly feels like a breath of fresh air. It is truly a miracle, because it doesn't exist, because it's from the world of the unmanifested. It's not of this world. yet it is there within us if we start to practice all of this. So your self-observation will see and be at awe at the beautiful rose that grows within you and releases its Christic perfume of sacred divinity in your soul as you sit in samadhi, in meditation, just in total love and bliss. Okay, and then, my friends, you will then be grateful that you have found and succeeded with this key. Of course, it continues, but you will be happy and gratified that you are making progress and that you realize and understand this key in your own experience. That's what's important here. And you will hold on to it dearly and continue unwaveringly in practice as you continue to keep dissolving any old egoic patterns that arise from past lives too. And you will see how your whole life will transform through it, both internally and externally. It is a long path, but worth it. Perseverance, faith, hope, determination, patience, those will all help you completely. And I can tell you, I've been personally working through a lot of ugly, deep and dark egos I created in past lives that I never thought I would have had, right? But it's okay, right? Because, you know, I'm not identified with it. I stay with the Christ, the Mother, the God, the Father, okay? I'm not saying I am the Christ or I have attained these things. Any one of you who are listening right now can connect to that energy simply by keeping it in mind. Keep God focused in your mind. Wherever you look in life, see God, okay? Doesn't mean you are a God. It's just that like the Son looks at the Father, okay? So these aspects of our being, these aspects of divinity, these are the real powers of the being. Our real home of divinity that guides us, comforts us, and just tells us how to go home to our mother and father, okay, internally. And all we need to do is practice and wait. With patience, ye will possess your souls. It's actually very simple, and this video has been going on for over 2 hours now, but it's so simple. But this video is long and elaborate only because we are so lost and need such excessive instructions and elaborations. And even this video really isn't enough, actually, right? I've only just taken, 2 hours of your life? Well, you have thousands of hours ahead of you, and you need all the help you can get, right? So this is why study is important. And so, as with most of my videos, these are all based on the Gnostic teachings, which are so vast and immense that I can't possibly cover it all right now. So if you are really devoted to all of this, to awakening your consciousness in a real way, to find the real path within yourself, I urge you to go and see the description and see any of the resources there and choose to study anything that you see fit that will help you. Do not be in a hurry to discover it all immediately. It takes years of study and practice to understand all of this. Follow your intuition, follow your being. Do not follow anyone blindly, okay? You need to connect with your own process, your own path, and see where you are, okay? See what you need to do. In the description, I have a playlist called Sexual Transmutation, Love and Alchemy. It has other videos on these topics too from other channels as well. I recommend to see that as well. But just keep in mind, my YouTube channel with all of my videos does not hold all the keys at all. My videos just show a tiny portion of the path. The rest of it is just to inspire you and move your curiosity towards this universal, inner, secret path of esotericism within yourself, okay? If you trust me and follow me, I always say, do not follow me and do not trust me, but I sometimes see in the comments that people say they have accepted me as a teacher or something. Well, for those people, I say, trust me when I say, the links in the description are far more superior to study than following my silly little videos on YouTube. Okay, so as I said at the beginning of this video, if you are serious about this, you need to continue to study, and you need to think that you've not gained any knowledge from this video and that you're only hearing words and watching a strange creature on the screen talk about these things. Okay, I'm not even talking about them, actually, right? I'm not talking about them properly, I guess you could say. I'm just sat on a bench pointing at a huge mountain, 3 mountains actually, and I'm just describing a tiny part of one mountain. The real clues and riddles are for you to unravel and discover in your own experience. Seek and you shall find, knock and the door shall open, ask and you shall receive. That is truly, if you have faith, that is truly how it works. Good luck, and I hope you enjoyed this long video.